America becoming independent seemed impossible. Everywhere, America's army was being mercilessly killed, and the British commanders, relying on their trained army that was skilled in fighting, were continuously crushing the dreams of America becoming independent. There was chaos all around America, and because of the defeats of the American army, the revolution for independence had almost been suppressed. But then a battle took place that changed history. On January 17th, 1781, a British army officer, Banastre Tarleton, was advancing toward a small grazing pasture located in the upper region of South Carolina. Tarleton was a very ruthless military officer. He had crushed the American army and revolutionaries in many places. That same Banastre Tarleton was now moving forward with 2,000 soldiers to crush the American revolutionaries. With him were more than 2,000 of the British Army's best trained soldiers. Their target was a scattered group of American soldiers, nearly half of whom were untrained militia. These militia soldiers had a reputation for running away at the very first sight of a bayonet attack. They had neither training nor good quality weapons. Tarleton could clearly see that his soldiers would defeat this militia army in a very short time. He believed that this battle would end quickly. He believed that the end of the American rebels would be decided today, but he did not know that the field toward which he was advancing was a field that was going to change history. Tarleton expected an easy victory, a fast and almost one-sided massacre. But what he encountered was one of the finest tactical traps in military history. Within 1 hour, his elite army had been destroyed, and the man who created this trap, a frontier general with no formal military education, had displayed such military skill that military officers still study it today at institutions such as West Point. It was such a trap in military history that if even the largest army became trapped in it, escape was almost impossible. What kind of trap did this untrained army of American farmers and cattlemen possess? So how did a group of farmers and part-time soldiers destroy a professional British military force in less than 60 minutes? And not only the army, but they also severely struck General Tarleton and wounded him. If Tarleton had not fled the battlefield, he certainly would have been killed. I request all history lovers and great scholars to subscribe to our channel, Annie History TV, to watch more videos like this. This channel tells the truth of history. Greetings, friends. Today I am beginning this heart-stopping video. By the end of 1780, South Carolina had become a nightmare for the American Revolution. In May of that same year, the British captured Charleston and took more than 5,000 continental American soldiers prisoner. It was America's greatest defeat of the entire war. British officials did not have good intentions. They did not want America to become independent at any cost. The confidence and battlefield experience of the British Army were clearly visible. Wherever American soldiers were seen, they were shot on sight. The American army had become frustrated and hopeless, and Lord Cornwallis made the situation even worse. British commander Lord Cornwallis had now gained control over most of the southern colonies. British soldiers were continuously terrorizing patriot families in the rural areas. Most observers had begun to believe that the American Revolution in the South was nearly finished. But General George Washington was not a man who would surrender so easily. Under these circumstances, General George Washington sent General Nathanael Greene to take command of the Southern Continental Army. When Greene arrived there, he barely found an army. There were approximately 1,400 soldiers who were hungry and poorly equipped, and even among them, most of the soldiers were scattered throughout the rural areas of the Carolinas. Greene made a decision that most military commanders would have called madness. He divided his already small army into two parts. He sent about 600 soldiers westward under Brigadier General Daniel Morgan, and approximately 800 untrained soldiers remained with him. And the most interesting thing was that Daniel Morgan was not like an ordinary general. He did not come from a wealthy family. He had no noble connections, nor did he have any formal military training. His childhood was spent in poverty in Virginia's Shenandoah Valley. He worked as a wagon driver, carrying supplies through the wilderness. Once, during the French and Indian War, a British officer insulted Daniel Morgan. Morgan was not the type of man to tolerate such behavior. He punched that British officer. As a result, he was sentenced to 500 lashes. The scars from those lashes remained on his back for the rest of his life. It is said that Morgan jokingly used to say that the British still owed him one lash because the drummer counting the blows had counted one strike less. Such a man neither forgets nor forgives. Daniel Morgan hated the British. He wanted to overthrow British rule. And for this reason, when the American Revolution began, Morgan joined the war with his Virginia Rifleman Company. He participated in nearly every major battle from the siege of Quebec to Saratoga. At Quebec, he was shot in the neck. Even then, he continued fighting. He was not only brave, but also intelligent. By 1780, Morgan had deep hatred toward the British Army, but he possessed something even more valuable than that: a deep understanding of the behavior of ordinary soldiers. He had observed that militia soldiers were not cowards, they were simply not trained soldiers. Placing them in an open field against British regulars was like sending a school football team to play against an NFL professional team. Banastre Tarleton pursued Morgan with a trained force of 2,000 soldiers. When Morgan learned that Tarleton was pursuing him with more than 2,000 soldiers, he decided to fight instead of running away. He chose a place called the Cowpens, a famous cattle grazing pasture in northern South Carolina. Daniel Morgan was very familiar with this area. At first glance, the location appeared to be a terrible choice. Behind it was the broad river, which blocked any route of retreat. There was open ground all around, no forest, no swamp, no natural protection, but Morgan deliberately chose this very location. He did not want his militia soldiers to have an easy path of escape. Daniel Morgan halted his troops some distance away, and in a temporary camp, he made his plan. All night long, he walked among the soldiers explaining the plan. He joked, he told stories, and he explained to every soldier exactly when and what he was supposed to do. His plan was very clear. The enemy army and its commander had to be punished in such a way that the British army would never forget the Cowpens. He told the militia, "You only need to fire twice. After that, fall back." On the battlefield, Morgan arranged his army into 3 lines. In the first line were approximately 50 selected marksmen. They were ordered to target British officers and then fall back. Keep in mind that all officers were to be either killed or wounded. In the second line were approximately 200 militia soldiers. They were ordered to fire only 2 accurate shots. After that, they were to move back and regroup, and then attack again. In the third line were approximately 250 regular soldiers. This was the backbone of the army. Daniel Morgan laid such a trap that the British commander could not understand it. Behind a second hill, he had hidden Commander William Washington along with a cavalry detachment that the British soldiers could not see. On the morning of January 17th, Tarleton ordered an immediate attack without allowing rest, without conducting proper reconnaissance, and without gathering sufficient information. Tarleton did not know that he had already fallen into General Daniel Morgan's trap. The British army advanced, and on the vast field of the Cowpens, it collided with the American army. The battle began. The American army acted according to Daniel Morgan's plan. The American marksmen in the first line began bringing down British officers. Then they withdrew. After this, the British soldiers reached the second line. At a distance of 50 yards, the militia fired their first devastating volley, then the second. The British lines began to scatter. After that, the militia soldiers began falling back according to the plan. British officers interpreted this as a retreat. They believed that the American army had broken. This was exactly the mistake Morgan had been waiting for. Excited British soldiers forgot discipline and rushed forward rapidly. They wanted to crush and destroy the American army and its commander. As soon as they crossed the hill and advanced forward, they came face to face with John Eager Howard's fresh and organized Continental Army, hidden according to the plan. From close range, the American soldiers fired together. The British army no longer had any opportunity to retreat. The British lines were violently shaken. Then Howard launched a bayonet charge. At that very moment, William Washington's cavalry emerged from behind the second hill and smashed into the British right flank. And then the militia soldiers who had previously withdrawn appeared once again on another side of the battlefield. And with full force, they charged into Commander Tarleton's army. Now, the British army was surrounded from three directions. In front were the regular American soldiers. On the right side was the cavalry. On the left side were the returning militia soldiers. It was a complete double envelopment, and escape from this trap was almost impossible for the British army. The attack came from three sides. British Commander Tarleton was stunned. There was no chance to win, and no chance to escape. For a short time, fierce gunfire continued, and within only a few minutes, the British army collapsed. The soldiers threw down their weapons. The efforts of the officers failed. Tarleton was badly wounded. There seemed to be no way to survive. However, Tarleton's loyal troopers stood their ground bravely, and they managed to escape with a few horsemen. Tarleton himself somehow escaped with a small group of cavalrymen. In this battle, which lasted approximately 1 hour, more than 300 British soldiers were killed, and 400 soldiers were wounded, and approximately 800 soldiers were taken prisoner. Tarleton lost more than 80% of his army. In contrast, American losses were only 12 dead and approximately 60 wounded soldiers. America achieved a magnificent victory, and the British army suffered a crushing defeat that created fear within the British forces. This victory was not merely the victory of a single battle, it broke the backbone of British strategy in the South. Morgan transformed the greatest weakness of his army, the tendency of the militia to retreat, into his greatest weapon. This great commander in American history will always be remembered. He trapped the British in such a way that new life returned to the American Revolution. This battle changed the history of America. Even today, the Battle of Cowpens is taught in military academies in America and other countries, and it is presented as an example of how understanding the true capabilities of one's army, taking advantage of the enemy's mindset, and making a precise plan can achieve a victory that appears impossible, just as the American army achieved. And within 1 hour, it shook the foundations of the British Empire. If you enjoyed our video, then please subscribe to the channel to watch more videos.